so yeah, let's say they post about the competitor and we find out actually it's because their search function works really well. So even though they're not inclusive, they can still find what they're looking for because of the search, the way the search is designed, right? So for me, it's things that take me by surprise as a researcher. Those are the things that I love the most, that are really salient, and then that will typically send me down a rabbit hole of like, oh, I want to find out more about this. I need to ask more questions. I might go back and like completely redesign and rewrite the questions and answers that I initially thought like were to be. So, yeah.
Hmm. So how do you? And this kind of you're perfect. You're the perfect interviewee because the topics are flowing right into the next question perfectly for
Thank you
me.
so much.
So when you talk about listening to that social listening data, though, how do you differentiate between the what's like you kind of showed like understanding like that qualitative side or understanding what's valuable and what's noise, but like those tools can get very noisy. So how do you kind of get by that, especially when you're trying to understand something like like consent education, right? Like, or making sure that you identify areas where you can educate for that particular
Yeah.
topic. How do you differentiate the noise in something in a topic like that?
Yeah, it's this great question. The first thing that I will say, and Nichefire makes this a lot easier, I think, than traditional social listening, is writing your query out. That is everything. It's like the language that you're using and the keywords that you're using and how you filter out the noise. This is a technical answer, but it is the honest answer. That's how you filter it out. And obviously that comes
Yeah.
with practice. But then I would also say it's it's uh, it's hard to because sometimes even within the noise, like I was saying, you can find that little nugget. So that would be the first thing, yeah, query writing. But then something like just to highlight Nichefire for a second, because it's like a complementary tool to social listening. I remember you were saying this in the pitches and in the discussions that we had together of like it's showing you what could possibly be a trend before it is. So I don't need to know those language. So if we're talking about consent education, I need some starting trends, but then I could see how, oh, this topic and unfortunately, consent is politicized. So politics is going to be the area
Mhm.
that I will probably find it the most, the category that I would find it the most. Just looking
Exactly.
within those categories and seeing things that are adjacent. Again, like it's as I'm sure you know, the it's a super fine line and honestly like a Venn diagram of what's noise and what is a nugget of gold. So sometimes I will hunt through the noise, even though it's very tedious, to find a nugget because sometimes
Hmm.
you don't want to overcorrect. So if anything, I'm always okay with a little bit of noise because that might still get me something that I didn't necessarily think of. But yeah, both being able to hunt for keywords that so like being adaptable, right? Like if I'm searching and I'm like, oh, these like I wouldn't search like consent education, I might search um like how to stuff, right? Like how to do certain things. Or
Hmm.
a great kind of subreddit that I've discovered recently is body language, r/body language.
Okay.
And it's a bunch of clearly teen
Or
girls being like, I was at the gym and is this girl making eyes at me? So like figuring like that's something I would, as I learn about it, I would plug that into a social listening tool. So it's always, I think my biggest tip to people if they're using social listening tools that I found success with is not using the language that you think your user is using. Just go and look at the noise first,
exactly.
figure out, oh, okay, that's how they're talking about it, that's how they're talking about it, and then go back, iterate, and use the terms that you're seeing come up because that's you're trying to speak. So often I see technical people using the technical language that we use internally, and it's like the consumer is not talking
Yeah.
about our product like that. Like, so yeah,
You have to go look into like our
exactly,
Riz, or
exactly,
like you said, our body language,
exactly. And now I'm getting like
the areas where these type of conversations, yeah,
exactly,
because that's where the education needs to be.
exactly.
Do you ever feel like, do you ever feel like that? Because I think that social media as a channel could be the one of the main culprits of the miseducation, the the toxic masculinity, um, you know, those type of things being kind of promoted to just people in general that could be muddying the waters for what you're actually trying to design and help improve on. So, how do you get through that barrier, understanding that while looking into these channels for insights and understanding these in your research, on top of the other types of research that you're doing, do you ever feel inclined to like step in and like tell someone, or like how do you address that, because I know you see it all the time in our body
Yeah.
language or
Yeah.
in our riz
Yeah.
or these places where you see these people have these crazy ideals on romance, relationships, how to talk to people that they're interested in. So like, do you ever feel inclined to like do something about that, or can you do anything like that with the design work that you do?